Welcome. Hello, everybody. I'm happy that everything works.
Isn't that wonderful? And it's quite amazing, actually. After last time, whenever we met, I think it was South Africa last year, we get to meet virtually. And, after this virtuality came into play in our life, it looks almost real. It feels almost real. Well, it is
Mm.
real, but we're virtual. But nonetheless, you still feel very close in a way. Don't you agree all?
Yeah, I agree.
All right. With that,
Yeah,
let's
for
all
sure.
right. Yeah, thank you, Matthias. So, all right, welcome everybody. So today we're going to talk about, Voices of International Project Management Association, member associations, voices out of the survey we ran on DEI and its significance and relevance with project management. This is a long time coming. We have put lots of great efforts with our panelists here and other who are not present here today, and the SIG, the whole team within IPMA to get here. But I'm going to elaborate more on that as we go along. Okay, so I'm going to change the slide. All right, so before we begin and then delve deep into the topic today, some of the etiquettes, we always need to be careful about, and we have done it many times and we all know it, but nonetheless, I'm going to go through quickly. So the webinar length is 1 hour. Video and microphone are turned on only for moderator and speakers. Question submissions through Q&A feature. Response to the question will be addressed during the Q&A session. And at times, if the questions is pertaining and the time permits, we may also jump into responding those questions, okay? And there is going to be a participation digital badge after 48 hours. And yes, you will also get CPD, which is 1.5 hours for participants. And also the video will be shared through our IPMA YouTube. Keywords, takeaways, IPMA, which most of you already know, maybe SIG stands for Special Interest Group, and DEI to this topic, which stands for Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and last but not least, CPD. All right, and quickly about the IPMA 6. So as you can see, we have 16 already. A couple of years ago, we started with 5, I believe. There are many other interests coming in. In future, I hear there's systems thinking also being on the a table to consider. And there are a variety of SIGs, as you can see, not just from DEI standpoint. We have water, we have software engineering, and you can also always check on our sig.ipayment.world for the details and what the common values that we all adhere to as our North Star, as we start and engage in SIG conversation. And one of the great outcome from the SIG is the sustainability. If you don't know, IPMA published sustainability guide last year, which started as SIG. So in similar fashion, for DEI, I would like also for us to work towards that sort of working and publishing DEI related, for project managers as a complementary to overall IPMA body of knowledge. That would be very exciting. And you can see from the map on the slide, there are many countries or MAs participating on the SIG effort. Please join us. If you have great ideas, bring to us. If you want to volunteer with already existing SIGs, please come join us. All right, and this is the CPD I mentioned earlier, 1.5 units, and the badge will look like what you see on the slide, depending on your role. Okay. All right, so how the webinar is gonna flow, right? So I have touched already, what the DEI is set up for. So I'm gonna elaborate on the vision. Then we go on to introducing our panelists, and we're gonna quickly review of what are covered in the previous webinars, because like I said, it's a long time making. There's a pathway, starting 3 years ago, the first webinar, and where we are today. And I'm going to go through a survey, what's it all about, and go through the survey outcome. And towards the probably 3/4 of the time, after that point onward, we're going to be discussing the survey outcome, and you will all hear inputs, thoughts from our thought leadership here. Hello, Dr. Okoro. How are you doing? Welcome.
Fine, thank you. Apologies for lateness.
No worries. And at the end, we're gonna go with the way forward. Hey, what awaits in future for us? What are our next steps? Okay. Hope that makes all sense, and I think we've been fine on time. All right. So I love this average. I don't know if you have heard it or not, because it talks about the data, the information, knowledge, wisdom, and understanding that hierarchical kind of, mapping in our mind and how it builds. And I love the way it says, an ounce of information is worth a pound of data. An ounce of knowledge is worth a pound of information. And so on, it builds. An ounce of wisdom is worth a pound of understanding. So wisdom, in an essence, is a qualitative change from the previous four. You can imagine, you can think, right? It makes sense, data, information, knowledge. And the four increases efficiency with which we pursue our ends. In this case, we are having conversation around DEI and its relevance, for project managers and organization. These three things is for us eventually being efficient in what we do. But wisdom helps us transition from efficiency and being effective. So it's a complementary as you build from data to knowledge, to understanding, to wisdom. And in a nutshell, this is what we're doing, right? From the first webinar 3 years ago, this is the fourth webinar and the survey coming into play and what awaits in future. So body of knowledge or publication I have been talking now is about documenting that knowledge, based on data, based on experiential inputs from panelists and other participants, and create that a body of knowledge for IPMA in regard to DEI. It's quite exciting. I hope that makes sense to you, and I hope you join the journey this way or the other. Okay. All right. So these are the three webinars that I have been mentioning. Starting in 2023. The first one had to do was DEI in general, what it is, define that, right? And how you can contextualize in your organization, DEI being your component or part or vertical, to do projects better. And the following two talked about, if DEI is embedded in your organizational culture and how it fosters strong, cohesive team collaboration. By that, the end result is better results in project success rate, right? And we did first in Asia, the second, the middle image you see on the slide, and the last one we did outside of Asia. And as you can see, some of the panelists are present here today, which is awesome. Right, so you can see from left to right, the 3 episodic webinars in the past, we did the survey, we're sharing the survey outcome, and eventually IPMA body of knowledge, aka publication. That's our vision, and thank you for being part of that. Okay, so we have come to a point where we would like to know more about our panelists. Dear friends, colleagues, panelists for today, from left to right, as you can see, if you share a few words about yourselves, it'd be great for all the participants. So starting with Terry, and you can go left to right as you see on the slide.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Depends on where you are in the world. Terry Coro. I'm a program manager. I'm in the construction area. I've had interest in DEI for decades. I write and talk about it, and it's something which I promote within my own organizations and the projects which I deliver. So I like to think I'm an influencer in that area. Thank you.
Wonderful, Terry. Matthias, yeah.
Okay, yes. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are. I'm happy to be here. So thank you, Tika, for the invitation here. I'm working in Germany as a project manager, project leader in different areas. I did it for a long time in the public sector. Now I went back to the automotive industry where I came from 20 years ago. And I always dealt with project management in relation with the human factor. And it becomes more and more important, in my opinion. And so DIE has much to do with the human-centered approach of project management and these important aspects, yes, and also perspectives and successes that emerge from that perspective. So I'm very curious about what the others contribute to the discussion today, and I will try to put my perspective also into a discussion to see what the feedback and the outcome is. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Matthias. I'm going to jump myself. Mila, over to you.
Hello, everyone, and thanks for having me. My name is Milla Ranta, and I'm a freelancer and entrepreneur based in Finland, but operating internationally. I've been around leadership, projects, and sustainable development now for 10 plus years on different fields. And why I became an entrepreneur and freelancer is because of my personal mission. It is to make the work life more sustainable for people. And what that means for me, it is that things and topics like sustainability, DEI, well-being, both emotional and artificial intelligence, these should be everyday things. And happy to connect with you all. So don't hesitate to hit connect in LinkedIn or in Instagram if you find me there.
Thank you, Mila. Over to you, Mark.
Good day, good evening to everybody. Mark Patch is my name. I live and work in Australia. My background is a little different to most other people's, though. My background is 30 years in the Australian Defence Force. I left the Defence Force 20 years ago now, hard to believe, and have conducted a private or my own consultancy company for the last 20 years. More recently, over the last 4 to 5 years, we've been focusing as a part of our consultancy on improving the workplace as a means of influencing the way in which a company operates. So, changing the company literally one person at a time. And so DEI has become an important part of that. I look forward to hearing others' inputs and conversations. And please, if you want to put something in the chat, go ahead. We'd love to hear from you.
Thank you, Mark. So as you heard, let's talk about DI, even during the introduction, where we hail from, and number of years that everyone or each panelist has been involved in project program management, and contextualize for a moment, right? So, Mark, I think it's midnight your time in Australia. There we go. I the head nodded. And Mila, Matthias, you both are in European time, Central European time. So it's about 2 o'clock for you both?
Right.
Yeah,
3 o'clock in Finland.
there we go. Terry, what time is for you, wherever you are now?
I'm in the UK at the moment, and it's just 1 hour different from European Central Time.
There we go. And for me, it's 8:14 in the morning. And if you add number of years that we have experienced here, I know more than 100 years of experience. If we add all, if we become a project team, Mark, Mila, Matthias, Terry, I think we're going to be great. But hold your horses, there's always team building phase. Remember the storming piece, I think we're going to be great because we're inclusive, we have diverse background, and equity will play in terms of, the project vision, which is going back to the old aphorism to say, effectiveness and efficiency with our knowledge, with our understanding and wisdom. Wouldn't that be wonderful? And look forward to working with you one day, perhaps, in our lifetime, in a project together. That'd be awesome, wouldn't it? All right. So with that, and myself, by the way, I'm Tika Ray, originally from Nepal, but I'm living in the US for now. And I'm the global head for DEI. Without panelists like what you see here today and here, we wouldn't be here today. So it's a collective effort, very inclusive, very diverse, and we want to make sure it's equitable for all of us too. All right, so a quick snippet of what we covered in the last webinars, again, building up to the survey and what awaits in the future. I briefly mentioned, the first round included what the DI is, and in an organizational context, what it means. And we talked about biases in the workplace, stereotypes, benefits of DEI in projects, and also pitfalls, why it wouldn't work. The other one is the key success factors to install DEI in your organizations or within your projects, and how DEI fosters long and cohesive collaboration with project teams. And let me piggyback on what Mark mentioned, and also Matthias, right? So it's about people at the end of the day. I know there are different frameworks. One would say process, technology, or people. The other may say technology, politics, and power. But at the end of the day, it's about people. Our customers are people. We are people within the organizations. That engagement, the collaboration and feeling of being there, feeling of being appreciated, acknowledged, and sense of belonging is so key. And already panelists mentioned about that. I have the very strong experience, why DEI works for me. I'm pretty sure, participants today out there, you also feel the same. And as we go through the result of the survey, you can also discern they also feel strongly about DEI and why it works for a project success. All right. So about the survey. So we really wanted to investigate whether the organization have any commitments to DEI, right? And if they do, what kind of programs and practices are implemented, and how well the DEI commitment resonates with the responding to the survey, project program managers. Does the respondent feel that there is a need for IPM literature or body of knowledge, or we interchangeably using with also publication, right, around DEI? And the target responders were following from project executives to senior project directors, senior project managers, and down to entry-level project manager. Survey title: Does having an organizational commitment to DEI positively impact project success? And we did have very good response, but we're gonna build, right? This is not the first survey and we're done. Building that knowledge and wisdom and understanding we talk about, we got to continue persisting with additional, research, investigation, as such, and we will do that through DEI, especially interest group for sure. As you can see, it's a very good start. There are 15 locations from Australia, China, Iran to Nepal, Singapore, UK, USA, and you can see the diversity, from different continents and different backgrounds, so this is quite exciting. And the total participants have been 115. All right, so from this one to next few slides, I'm going to go through the survey outcome. And I'm sharing the ones, right, not about their, size of the company and etc., but more on the DEI question. So this has to do with the roles of the participants. So project executive 30%, project director 6%, senior project manager 30%, and project manager 17%. And as you can see, none of the above, right? So if you look at the roles, it's prescriptive, defined, from project executive to senior project manager. If they are higher in rank, it's not included, right? That's why, my understanding is that, none of the above participants would be higher or some business side of people. So that's something further to be investigated in the future, but you get the idea, right? What kind of roles they play, who participate in the survey. All right. And the sectors, right? So we have public sector, private, nonprofit. As you can see, private sector is 65, majority for sure, public 18, nonprofit 12, and there are other. Next one, size of the organization. So I may have missaid earlier. It's not included, but it is. My apologies. But you can see, the size of the companies, 1 to 50, 41%. And it jumps to, up to 500 rather quickly, between 201, that is, up to 500, then 501 to 1,000, and the 1,001 to above. So as you can see, around 50% are really, companies with big number of talents, right? So, which is great to have, those kind of companies representatives participating in the survey. I think you will all agree. And we have one extreme, the, smaller in size. So we have two extreme, if I may, which is a good data point for us to analyze and synthesize our story. All right, it's commitment towards DEI. So the question is, if your organization is committed towards DEI, slightly committed 6%, moderately committed 18%, very committed 53%. And this was very encouraging to see that majority actually saying DEI commitment is very, very strong, which is great. Extremely committed 18%, and not at all committed is 5%. So 95% of the respondents said, either slightly to extremely committed, very committed being 53% of the total participants. So this is great. So this is happening, as you can see. And this question has to do with initiatives implemented, right? Excuse me. Diversity training program, because there are different types of programs or initiatives, your organization have implemented or going to implement. And it's a range of, such activities or programs I listed. And the first one is the diversity training program, inclusive hiring practices, employee resource groups, ERG for short, right? Equitable pay practices, flexible work arrangements, mentorship program. And if you look at the high hitters, yeah, which is the inclusive hiring practices and flexible work arrangements, right? So there are 83%, which is quite high to see that, and that's quite amazing too. So I'm going to pause for a moment. If you kind of step back and look globally, the Gen Z and the now Generation Alpha also coming on board into the population, and in near future they're going to be talent, right, working for companies or making their own companies. If you look at overall wave, I mean, in the US, I can talk about, there's an extreme polarity now with the being woke or the liberals and the conservatives, for example. And in Europe, if you Google up or if you do research, you see the new generation are being more popularist, kind of mentality. But what I'm trying to say here is this has to do with organizations, not, it doesn't touch necessarily the political landscape. I want to be very mindful and distinguish that from the get-go. So question is within an organization, within your project. So if an organization practices inclusive hiring practices, what it means, right? It depends from organization to organization. But in a high level, what it's saying is this, they are saying, oh, what it is saying for organization, I can speak for my company I work for, we actually practice inclusive hiring practices. We have ERG, which is to say, the customers we serve, we want to have some kind of representation internally, have similar kind of diverse background that aligns, right? So it is not to say, one background needs to communicate with the same background, but if you look from outside in, the company that I work for, when you have people from different ethnic background, different experiences, it looks better from a competition standpoint. But the bigger or more important part is when we do a project, of different sizes, the ideas that come, because of the collective diversity and inclusion in the team is quite amazing. One problem can be solved from different many perspective, and each culture, each background, they come on board in that discussion table with all these rich, perspectives to help us finding different solutions, for example. And it just makes the team very vibrant, So yeah, so just wanted to highlight that piece. And the next one is the policies, programs, guidelines, the organization may have already done. So DI training programs. Did I repeat this one? No, it's a different one. Yeah. There we go. Yeah, hiring practices, resource group. Or my slide is not moving. Let me go to the next one. There you go. Maybe a tech lister for a moment. There you go. And the DEI champion role in leadership. So, or your organization may have called the DEI champion something else, right? But in an essence, if there's a leadership who takes up that role, like a DEI champion or a DEI North Star, whatever the case may be, 33% said, yes, they have certain leadership who plays the, leading that DEI effort in their organization, whereas, 2/3 said no. It's okay, but you saw the graph earlier, right? The commitment is very strong. They may not have that role. In my case, the company I work for, we have actually a DEI council, and we have the council head who leads that DEI championship role, if I may. Okay. All right, and how well DEI is implemented. So just the three bars you see, slightly, moderately, very well. But what you see here, the pattern is that moderately and very well, if you add them up, that goes about 83%, which is significant, and it's good news for, who believe in DEI and who want to or who have implemented DEI in their organizations. And this slide and the coming two additional slides talks about the ranking. The first one is the value of diversity, second is equity, and third one is inclusion, and how the participants ranked based on these questions, right? So the first one is enables teams to perform better and goes to increases attraction and retention of top talents. So these are fairly distributed well. They all felt that. So if you look at the third one, so they ranked that number one most, which is sparks significantly more innovation and creativity. And the second one would be enables teams to perform better. I'm just reading the vertical where is the longest the colors are. And the third is the helps better understanding of the customer it serves, increases attraction and retention of the top talents being the last one. Next one, equity, right? So the yellow is the longest one in this case too. Of course, yellow means the longest one. Adds integrity to the team. Second being nurtures a more positive workplace. And third being ensuring fairness and offers opportunities to all. And last being promotes a shared experience. All right, next one, value of inclusivity. The blue one engages each individual across teams, makes team members feel they are valued and special to these successful projects. Third being provides a sense of belonging and being heard. And final, more resilient during change. And last one, so the question to the participants were, do you see any value if the SIG would go on to working, creating the DEI body of knowledge? And 42% said yes, 33% said maybe, and 1/4 said no. So 75%, maybe or yes. So that's still a very good result. And we're going to touch on our way forward when we get to that slide. So you get the idea, right? So what the survey outcome was. So I'm not going to put label like already it went positively versus negatively before we hear inputs from our panelists. And dear panelists, so these are the questions, which I just elaborate from slide to slide, going through each. So what we do now is, I know you have already seen the slide. You are to pick 2 to 3, right, topics you would like to discuss, and in the same order, where we did the introduction. Share your thoughts, share your inputs, right? And if that topic overlaps with the other panelists, you may also jump in. So we cover that piece there, and we go on to in the same order from left to right of that slide where we did the introduction. So quite a bit to digest, really. I know it's like, as the metaphor goes, drinking from the water hose. I'm feeding lots of information. Bear with me. So with that, I think, Terry, I think you are the first one from left to right you mentioned earlier, right? So yeah, go on, pick one topic, the first one you would like to talk about. And Matthias, Mila, Mark, if you happen to also pick that, you can also jump on that one, right? Then we go to Matthias, then we go to Mila in that order. If that makes sense. Terry?
Yeah. So I'd just go for the first one. And I'd say that my organization is quite committed to DAI. And I'll be speaking for my consultancy as well as another organization where I sit on the board and I lead on DEI. EDI is called in the UK. And I, as an individual, if I'm involved in any organization, DEI is championed. So it just shows that you need to have people who are committed to ensure that that agenda is up there and that it's taken up and forefront. And I see DEI as something strategic. It's not just linked to recruitment. It has to be linked to everything you do, from how you make your decisions, how you look at benefits of projects, and also how you procure. It's something which will weave its way through everything. And because I come from that perspective, I have influenced the organizations I work with to sort of see it as more strategic and not something which is just for HR. It's something which is everybody's business. And so in your everyday work, you're questioning your decisions to see how they can be inclusive. So it's not just saying commitment and nothing to show for it. We actually report back on it informally. We are committed to community engagement. We are looking at, because we're mainly in construction, that the projects we deliver have inclusive designs incorporated within that. And for the board organization where I sit on, they've had external consultants come down and do an audit, and have taken on board the recommendations of those consultants, because sometimes people are committed and want to move forward but not quite sure how to do it, and sometimes you need that external assistance to assist. So things like employee resource groups and all of that are sort of embedded. But obviously, it needs to reflect your scale and size of organization. And if you cannot have that in-house, you can signpost your employees to join things within the sector as well. So I think I'll stop there for now.
Thank you, Terry. So Matthias, Mila, Mark, if you had also picked to comment on this one, starting you with Matthias, you have any thoughts if you have picked this topic?
I have picked, first of all, topic number 4, but I could add something to what Terry said, but I would leave the other 2 if they have picked question number 1. Afterwards, I could go on with my choice then. So any comments from you, Mila and Mark?
I picked number 1 as well. The reason why I picked it is because whilst it's not my own organisation, I mean, my consultancy is a relatively small consultancy. The organisations that we work for, and in particular where we are establishing new project management frameworks or capital delivery frameworks for a large organisation, DEI becomes quite important. And so to use as an exemplar, one of my current clients, they're an airport corporation, a privately owned airport. And it was interesting, Tika, that you pointed out the fact that your organisation implements DEI principles creates a strong link to your client. And that is obviously very true of an airport. I mean, an airport day in, day out has to deal with diversity, inclusion and equity issues. Hundreds of thousands of passengers and workers and all that sort of stuff. So it's just really important. And that's why I mentioned earlier that our approach to this is to literally start at the bottom, one person at a time, work individually, because a part of the outcome of it is that each and every one of those individuals understands how much they are valued. And that adds to the overall ability of the organisation to be able to deliver a better product to the customer. And that is so true of the airport. There's no doubt they initially introduced DEI principles in order to meet government compliance requirements. But the interesting thing about having introduced it for that compliant purpose was that they found them to be quite effective, and that it actually created a workplace of choice for the people that they really wanted, the talented individuals they need, the innovative individuals they need. So from that perspective, so when you look at all of the ranked benefits that we talked about for diversity and equity and inclusion, it enables the team to perform better. It helps understanding of the customer they serve. It certainly makes for a really positive workplace, and it adds integrity. It ensures fairness. Interestingly, I had an example recently of a project manager I was working with who was given 3 weeks off to go back to his native country of Nauru, where he was to be appointed the king of his village. Now, I don't know about others, but if I was in my previous line of work in the military, if I was to walk up to my boss and say I'd like 3 weeks off because I want to go back to my original village where I'm about to be announced as the king, there might have been significant disbelief, but it probably wouldn't have been a positive answer. I wouldn't have thought so. I just thought that was a great example of how far the workplace has come, that they saw that as really beneficial, not just to that particular employee, but to the whole team and the division within which he works. They saw that as a really positive thing. So, yeah, I think it's really important that we are committed to it.
Thank you, Mark. Matthias, you mentioned you have some comments to add too. Please go ahead.
Yes, definitely. And it's very interesting that we get, with what Terry and Mark said, a close relation, as I think, also to the fourth point. You talked about the necessity that the DIE principles and systems and attitudes have to come to life to create a benefit, to create a progress. And I was a little bit astonished about the responses that not so many answers posted that there is a champion, DIE champion in the leadership area. Because if something needs to come to life, I think we should have, or it might help that if we have examples, somebody who lives these values before us or shows us how to live, and normally these should be our leaders. So if I have somebody who goes ahead, it's much easier for the organization, for the team to follow, to think about, to discuss about, and to try out the one or other behavior or system or technical approach, whatever. So bringing DIE into life, into projects, is for me closely related to leadership task. Or we can say it the other way around. If many of the people in the team or in the project incorporate these principles, they support also the leader going forward and doing another step and another step forward to progress also in that area. And then in a second part of the discussion, perhaps a little bit later today, if we have time, it would be interesting to look a little bit closer on the so-called success. I struggle a little bit to call it success because it's a little bit more. It's a value. It's a progress. It's a development that we could reach, not only for the projects as well, but also for the people. As Tika mentioned at the beginning, we are all people. We are all humans, apart from our technical assignments and so on. So this bringing DIE to life needs, in my opinion, leaders, perhaps not only formal leaders, but people who are leading with a certain authority, with a certain self-understanding of these values. And this is what I want to add, to have a little bit of focus on that. And I try to work on that in my environment, in my company, to talk to people, but also to leaders, also to the top management, even if I'm not so close to the top management. But if there is a relationship, if there's an exchange of opinions and values, that could help forward the whole company, the whole organization, and the project. So close relationship, bringing everything to life, implemented in our everyday work, and having leaders or examples which go ahead.
Thank you, Matthias. Mila, you have any opinion before we go to the next round? And I'm gonna.
Yeah, I could actually follow up with the second on top, and I fully agree with Matthias that the commitment of the organization that Terry and Mark were talking about, really is showed in the top leadership as well. So it really matters if all the leadership teams, all the way to the top executives, are committed. And there is really ownership over DEI in the organization. So we need to go as high as we can with the ownership of this. And the second point, the second one on from the top, the DEI initiatives, which is, I think, the way that the commitment is shown in practice. I would like to elaborate on that. There was many good things, many good initiatives mentioned in the survey, like the diversity training programs, hiring practices, employee resource groups, equitable pay, and so on. I think, two things I would like to race from there. As a trainer, I think things like DEI, well-being, sustainability, there are nowadays so many changes parallel that organizations are going through at the same time, that if we separate one topic like DEI from all the other contexts and make it a separate training, of course, then we can go really deep into that. But the reality in many organizations nowadays is that there is not enough time for competence development. So you really need to choose which training you participate in. This is why I would really like to encourage all the organizations that are committed to DEI to include these perspectives and competencies in all the other trainings. So if you have a leadership training, don't leave DEI topics out of it, but really integrate it into that training, so that while you are training your future leaders, you are giving them the tools to make to include diversity, equality, and inclusivity in the leadership as well. And one other I would like to point out, there was the mentorship programs mentioned in these initiatives. And I think this is many times overlooked, because mentorship is something that can happen in really small moments in our daily lives, while we do the productive work, while we lead the projects, while we have the coffee table conversations. And for me, myself, leading the Young Crew Finland was really a golden lesson on this, the impact of mentorship, and especially from the DEI perspective. In Finland, we are lucky to have many international students coming to make their master degrees, for example, especially in the capital area, which then means that we have a lot of foreign young talents trying to get employed after their degree is done. And perhaps Finnish culture is not the most easy one to blend in. We tend to keep our distance, perhaps, and when you are not aware of these perspectives, then it might be difficult to get employed, for example, in Finland. And while we were mentoring the young crew members in project and leadership skills, we also talked a lot about communication and the cultural aspects, and things as simple as how fast you speak when you speak English for Finnish people. And this can be really a game changer. You might not come to think of it if you come from abroad, but in Finland, this has a huge impact on how you are perceived. When Finnish people feel that you are slowing down your tempo and really wanting to be understood and heard, then they will take the one step towards you. But if you speak really fast, trying to be polite and trying to not waste the Finnish people time, they might be like, whoa, way too much communication. As you might have seen the members in internet, that we use really quite few words and really think before we speak out loud. So that is the kind of stereotypical way of Finnish people to communicate. So things like this you learn through mentorship, when you have this like kind of psychologically safe relationship with a person, that you can give and receive feedback from also other than technical stuff like real project schedules and so on. So the mentorship thing is I think something that organizations that are committed to DEI and willing to really make impact there, that could be utilized more.
Mm-hmm. This is fantastic. So the listeners, right? So we are creating layers on the knowledge from all these experiences, real life that is. So this is amazing. Yeah, Terry, you touch on, the strategy view, right? Not just HR practices, but even procurement, even. Mark, you also look from bottom up, from one person to above, and example of the airport, who does not go through airport, right, when you fly? And Matthias, what I like about your inputs is what is success? Is just a project or people too? And there has to be a leadership, North Star, of example setting individual or leadership buy-in. And Mila, right? I mean, coaching, mentoring can be done in so many subtle ways. It could be over coffee, for example, and the relevance of all that. So this is amazing. So we just got done first round, and it's quite the cover. Apparently, we have so much to talk. Now, the second round, Matthias, you mentioned you have the fourth topic that you thought you're gonna provide input for. Go for it.
Yeah, so I already talked a little bit about the fourth topic. I chose also the topics 6 to 8 because they are closely related, and I want to raise again the point of success. So in which way is there a value or added value to the project? What is success, or what is the value? And I thought for myself, the last days when I thought about the topic in preparation of this panel discussion, success, or that something emerges out of that opinion, out of this value, means that there is a change, a difference in real life, in concrete situations, which shape at the end also the business success of a project. And this is especially difficult, in my opinion, in unusual situations. So if everything is fine, there's not really a problem. We can postulate our values and our commitment to DIE. This is not really a problem. But if it comes to a concrete situation, if I'm working with somebody who does not understand, who is slower, who has another cultural, religious, ethnological background, so we don't understand each other directly, it takes more time. It is more effort. It feels uncomfortable. This is the point where DIE comes to create value. If I am patient, if I try to set myself into the other part and bring us together forward as a team, with this patience, with the empathy to try to understand also the other part. And this is sometimes difficult. And this is sometimes what creates a new idea in my head based on your survey, Tika. Perhaps it might be interesting to drive another survey or to drive an analysis somehow. What does this really means in reality? So is there a way to prove my opinion, my values, my behavior in comparison with what brings the project forward, or how, to which extent gets a project better? Better success, better business success, better satisfaction of customers, stakeholders, team members, whatever. Because the core point, in my opinion, is the difficult situation, the problem situation, that if you leave your comfort zone, there you prove if your values really carry you through. And that would be an interesting analysis. Perhaps I have not really an idea how to drive it, but I would think about that a little bit. And perhaps already the awareness of that fact helps to think by yourself in the concrete situation. Now I have a problem. Now it feels uncomfortable. Let me look back down on my values. How can they help me to solve the situation? That would be an input. I try to learn in that area day by day, year over year, since decades. I think you will never finish learning in that direction. But this is what I think brings projects forward. And as I mentioned in my speech in Cape Town also last year, that brings project forwards, and therewith also the society, because the projects contribute also to bigger values, to bigger progresses for society and for our human race entirely.
Great, Matthias. So we are all lifelong learners. Organizations which adapt to learning mentality, can be very competitive. And the takeaway, because when we get to the way forward slide, actually there is, so I'm going to disclose now, there's going to be a follow-up survey or continued investigation around different topics under DEI. And the one you brought around, people, when we do projects, coming out of the comfort zone and difficult times, how do we interact? How do we persist through? I think that's a great topic for us to think it through and do further investigation. So thank you for that. So in the order, so Matthias, I think I'm going to kind of change the sequence here based on what we did earlier. So over to you, Mark, then Mila, and we're going to restart with Terry again. And now we don't have to pick and choose like this number and this number because we broaden our inputs, right? Because it may touch multiple topics already. So Mark, whichever you want to do next or pick, go for it.
Well, it's interesting because the other two questions that I wanted to answer is there a DEI champion in the organization and what DEI initiatives have been implemented? I reckon you can go either way with the leadership question. I mean, there's the age-old adage that I lead by my behavior, and if necessary, I should use words. And it is truly about do what I do, not do what I say. So in that respect, the organisation or my client at the moment is saying that we don't want a DEI champion. What we want is the entire executive team to be your DEI champions because their behaviours should reflect the organisation's strategic outcomes, which include DEI. So from that perspective, they want each and every one of the executive to be that champion. They, in their particular area of expertise as an executive general manager within the organisation. So they don't pick out a particular one. The HR department is tasked with providing the support necessary, but they don't pick out a particular champion. The whole ELT gets the job. And the board as well, I might add, not just the executives, but the board itself. And the second one about the implementation of initiatives, it's interesting how all of us are thinking the same way. Miller mentioned mentoring. Mentoring is a really important part of everything I've ever done. Every program that I've ever worked in, every portfolio I've ever worked in, I've set up a mentoring program for the benefit of all, because those who mentor benefit just as much as those who are the mentoree, in some cases even more. So you add that sort of, and the other thing about a mentoring program, particularly if it's an internal mentoring program, if you do it two down, so what I mean is you don't mentor those who are your direct reports, you mentor their direct reports, so you mentor two levels down in the organization, then by doing that, you enhance your own direct report and you enhance your own organization or your own part of the organization. So mentoring really big, inclusive hiring practices, really also focusing, I mean, the Australian Institute of Company Directors has focused its diversity piece on trying to get more women into company boards, particularly the top 500 companies, to get more women into it. I reckon in my clients, it goes way beyond just getting more women into senior positions. It's about cognitive diversity. I want people who think differently. And that's such an important part of the diversity piece that we're talking about here tonight. The fact that if you have people who think differently, their inputs are completely different and they all add, they all become a cumulative input where our inputs are better than each of us as individuals. And so I think that's really important. And flexible work arrangements. We've got the Victorian government, one of the state governments here in Australia, is currently putting legislation before the government that mandates that you must have 2 days at home. You work from home at least 2 days a week. They're going to mandate it. It'll be legislated.
Wow.
So that sort of takes flexible work arrangements to a whole new level. And I think that's wrong. I think that takes away from an organisation the ability to work with its employees in a way that optimises both the organisation's output and the employees' ability to work with the organisation to optimise its output. But personal view only, not necessarily the views of the management.
Thank you, Mark. So a couple of highlights here. So for listeners or participants, so is there need to be one DI champion, or it should be across the board? Everybody, especially the executive team, would have be the example, right? It's for you to talk about, when you go back to organizations, maybe because changing organization is not overnight process, right? Maybe we can start with one DEI leader, and over time, everybody changes to that new culture, and everybody's sort of an example. And mentorship, I think, the way I look at it is like when you're able to teach or mentor someone, that is the evidence you have learned that art, right? I think it's such a great way to provide back to mentees and also assess yourself how well you're doing. And the flexibility you touched on, Mark, that's quite amazing story of the Australian government. So thank you. So we have 3 minutes. This is what I'm going to propose. This is amazing. There's so much to talk about, right? So way forward, one activity is to do a follow-up, the webinar, and that's going to be in October. So I'm kind of disclosing all the information because we only have 3 minutes. So we may not cover everything today. Mark, Mila, Matthias, Terry. We're going to do a follow-up. How about that? So that we continue this conversation. But whatever takeaways from this webinar, I'm going to dovetail that into our following webinar, so we continue that conversation, the topic we catch today. Does that sound okay, Mark, Mila, Matthias, Terry?
That makes sense.
Fine for me completely.
All right.
Sounds good.
All right. So we only have 3 minutes. Wow, time flew very quickly. And I did my best to kind of fly through the first few slides so we have more conversation all the time. I think which we did, I think good half an hour at least. So what I'm going to ask you is from Mila, Matthias, Terry, for today's webinar, last thoughts, right? But with the condition we're gonna have a follow-up down the road, So Mila, share last thoughts, and I'm just gonna quickly probably cover one more slide before we end. Over to you, Mila.
Last thoughts. Wow. Well, one thing really important lesson I've learned implementing DEI or anything else is that, for example, diversity, it should not be an end in itself, but when you really put effort in finding the purpose, okay, why do we need diversity? When you ask and find the questions and answers to these, then that is where the buy-in from your people will start. So keep that in mind.
Thank you. Matthias?
So I would close with again that focus that, in my opinion, if we drive projects, if we drive digitalization, human is key, and let's keep people in the middle of everything we do and in the middle of our hearts for all the projects.
Wonderful. Thank you. Terry?
Yeah, just coming back that people should realize that DEI has an element about behavior, individual competence, and cultural intelligence, as well as the policies and processes that we put in. And sneaking another one in for leadership, it should be about responsibility and accountability. So you may have someone accountable, but everyone should be responsible. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Mark, I didn't give you the opportunity to do the last thought, so please, if you have any, share, and we're going to conclude soon.
You're still muted.
Yeah, Mark, you're still muted.
That may be a good thing. I think that what we've all got to, as Terry just said, it's an individual competence. DEI is an individual competence. It will not succeed unless every individual wants it to succeed. It's one of those things that one or two people can put a real spanner in the works in an organization. It needs to be holistically applied. It needs to be holistically implemented across the organization, from the very top, from the board and the executive leadership, right down to the individual lowest member of the team. And if that happens, everybody from the bottom to the top will benefit.
Thank you, Mark. And this is the way forward slide. So if you look at the fourth bullet there, actually third, my apologies. So thinking has been, create a body of knowledge that would complement the ICB. And Mark, you touched on that one, right? Individual competency. I think that aligns really well. And let's continue to think from, that aphorism I mentioned, data, information, knowledge, understanding, how we use this conversation of part of that knowledge building into that either publication or body of knowledge. And next webinar, I have scheduled for October 30th. Looks like we may have to do earlier, but I will reach out to you, all panelists, separately, offline on that one. Okay. So we're going to wrap up today, and quickly, IPMS 34th World Congress is being held in Berlin during the week of August 15th. Please be there. But panelists, thank you so much for your time. And I will definitely see you in Berlin before the next webinar. And we're going to also catch up and follow up. Thank you so much for being here and making this experience altogether historic, rich, and fun and meaningful. And Mark, especially you, now it's 1 a.m. in the morning. So good morning to you. For rest, good evening or good night. We'll talk soon.